Hey everyone, and welcome back to our top 50 best games of all time. We took a little bit of a break. We were a lot going on right now in my personal life that has slowed down the channel production, but we're finally getting into our top 10 right now. And you're also going to see my one of my buddies, Anderson, who is from my game group. He's going to be showing up for each number, providing his top 10 list as well. He was with the first person that I found when I moved to our new place, who joined up as a game group, and now we have a game group of 3. And you might hear from Dosepad as well at one point from off camera. He doesn't have a top 10 list, but he was still here when we were filming. So let's get right into the top 10 now, and we're kicking it off with Cloudspire. This is from Chip Theory Games. This is a very dense game, and just like physically dense. So much stuff in here. This is one of the coolest things. I'm stuttering here. I'm so excited about this game. You know, I haven't played this game in quite a while, and I'm very excited to get back into it. I got some buddies that want to play it eventually as well. But this right here, all these chips, this is what Chip Theory Games is all about. You do have these custom dice in here that belong to the different factions in the game. Just some advertisement there. So you've got, let's see. All right, so the one thing with, I don't know about all Chip Theory games, but with Cloudspire is there are so many individual powers, individual effects in the game, but they give you all these, I mean, this is like plastic, these reference sheets to help you keep everything straight. So these are for different different mercenaries, and then you've got landmarks and stuff, all the different abilities there. But then you have the Braunen faction, you've got the Heirs faction, and so you see on this side of the reference sheet, you have the different advancements for their fortresses, and the level, the cost, and then what it's going to do, and it all is laid out really well for you here. Then on this side, you have the different talents, which are basically special abilities their soldiers, their troops are going to have. And so you can see you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 talents that are specific to the Heirs faction. And the Braunen, let's see, I mean, you can see they are completely different stuff here. But they have, I mean, maybe slightly, there's a few things that are the same. So you have Assault is the same. But other than that, it is very much different stuff that the Braunen are going to have. And they have their own entire set of buildings as well. The rule book is very dense, a lot going on there. But then here's something else that's cool. They really have made it so if you want to play solo, you have this entire book of solo scenarios. In the end, I think there are, this is chapter 4, but I believe that's chapter 4 for that, for the Grove. Let's see. For the Grove Tenders, yeah. And so then you can see here, this is for the, what are these guys called? The Narora. So you have a ton of scenarios in here for solo. Then you've got this book for cooperative scenarios, right? You go through that, doing that. And then, of course, you can play competitively against other players. You have these other two factions, the Grove Tenders and the Narora. The board is made up of this mouse pad material that is, I mean, is beautiful. The artwork is gorgeous, and you piece them together into different maps depending on what the scenario has to say about that, and the fortresses that each of your troops are going to be coming from. Each faction has its own fortress that they start at, and so this is a sort of tower defense game. I mean, sort of. It's a tower defense game. That's what it is. Tower defense, but where unless you're playing cooperative or solo, it's tower defense where you are throwing troops at your opponents, at your human opponents' towers, and trying to break through their fortress. And you can see, let's see, down here, do we have, I want to show you some of the troops. Yeah, here we go. All right, so you can see you've got, so these are the Grove Tenders, and you have all the information that you need on here. Plus, of course, you'll need to read what the different abilities mean, the different talents. Oops. You can hear how heavy these are. But you have all the information to tell you exactly what it's going to take to summon these guys, what kind of damage they can deal out, and all that stuff. Most of the troops follow a predetermined path, predetermined in the sense that it's an AI that determines where they go, but then you do have some variation in what you're able to make them do as well. And then your heroes, I believe they're called heroes, or they're called characters, you actually directly control where they go. So this is one of those games that has so much going on, and I really have not gotten to dive into it the way I want to yet, but I have played enough to know that I absolutely love it. You use these pegs for keeping track of stuff in your fortress. And the production, of course, is just stunning. And yeah, that is Cloudspire. Okay, so now we've got Anderson here, who's one of two guys from my game group. He actually managed to build a top 10 list. He's been playing games for a little while now as well, and our game group's been together for a year and a half now, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, for the top 10, he's going to be jumping in for every number along the way to provide his top 10 as well. So as I mentioned already, my number 10 was Cloudspire, which you haven't played yet, right?
I have not played Cloudspire yet. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's one that we're definitely going to get to the table soon. What is your number 10?
So my number 10 is kind of a legacy mission for me. It's Catan. It's kind of what really started me in the board game habit years ago. I mean, I loved board games as a kid, but I'd say my first adult board game, Catan. So kind of an honorable introductory intervention there for number 10.
I've only played Catan Junior. I've never played regular Catan. So is that what you still have that one?
Yeah, I still have that one.
Okay, so yeah, that's one we'll have to for sure.
It's very simple, but it's very nice and easy. A lot of people still love it.
Yeah, it's a classic for a reason. So number 9 is the only one on the top 10 that I don't actually own. This is Dune Imperium. This is a game that is brand new to the list. I just played it for the first time in February, and it is a deck building game. Obviously, takes place in the Dune universe. Takes place on Arrakis, and it's a deck building game where all the players not only have their deck of cards that they're trying to build, but it's also got a worker placement aspect to it as well. There's, I believe, 3 different color locations, green, blue, and yellow, I believe. And depending on what cards you got in your hand that you play, that will decide which one of those color locations you can activate. But then within that color, there are multiple locations as well. And, and that's going to have different costs and different benefits and that sort of thing. There's a number of different tracks that you're working your way up. There's also a combat round that goes on during the game where on the board you're putting pieces out that represent your troops, and then at the end, I believe it's at the end of the round, you will conduct a battle basically amongst your troops. Sometimes it might be worth it for you to just kind of let the troops you got there, let them go, because things are getting too expensive out there for you to deal with, and you're going to focus somewhere else. This is one where so when you hit 10 points, the game is going to come to an end at the end of that round, but players have a chance of catching up and passing the player that actually triggered the end game. You have cards that are going to score points at the end of the game that can give you that extra boost. You have all different decisions to make, lots, because it combines that deck building with the worker placement and with that combat system as well. There's so many cool decisions to be made in this game. Absolutely love this game, and it helped. I'll admit it helped that I got really sucked into the Dune universe as well when I watched the new Dune movie that came out last year. So that being a fan of that world, that universe, certainly helped. But I think that this is one that people who don't know anything about Dune could still really get a lot out of it. I feel like it's that strong mechanically. That's Dune Imperium, my number 9. All right, so my number 9 was Dune Imperium. I don't think you played that one either.
I have played that one.
You have played Dune Imperium?
Yes.
Okay, so that's actually one we have a group get together once a year up here. My buddy actually owns that one. He might be bringing that one with him because he really likes that a lot. So, do you have that one?
No, I actually bought that one for my nephew for his birthday.
Okay.
And we played that. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Dune Imperium's awesome. This is the first year on my list for it, so I just played it in February for the first time, and it's already at number 9. So, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is Dead of Winter. It's something that we have actually played together. Yeah. I enjoyed that a lot. It's nice, cooperative, edge yet still competitive kind of aspect to it. And zombie games, always fun.
Yeah. Dead of Winter, that was one of the earliest games in my collection. So that one has definitely stood the test of time. I love that game for sure. Number 8 is Dead of Winter, a Crossroads game. This is one of the earliest games I ever got when I got involved in the hobby. I would say it's the first game that I remember getting excited about based off of was it a review, or actually I believe it was watching the Watch It Played explanation for how the game worked. And the thing that got me so excited was the Crossroad cards, which I'll show you some of those right now. This is a zombie survival game. And in classic zombie survival fashion, the real bad guys often are the people instead of the zombies. But so these are the Crossroad cards, and basically every turn, the person to your right is going to pull a card, and they're going to read quietly to themselves this italicized part. So in this case, if a survivor the player controls is at the colony. So the person to the active player's right is going to have this, and they're going to read that. And if at any point during the active player's turn that becomes true, they stop the game and they read this out, and then there's usually decisions that have to be made. And it really adds some depth of theme to the game and makes things really interesting. You never know when one of those is going to trigger. So in Dead of Winter, you are all at this colony right here. This is the main base that you're in here, and this kind of general little diagram here. But basically, you've got 6 different entrances that zombies are going to start piling up at. You got to keep them away, because if you ever have more than 3 zombies standing in these entrance spots, so if we have a 4th one that's supposed to happen, then an overrun happens, and somebody in the colony is going to get bit. And when people get bit, bad things start happening. You got to keep track of your waste. You got to keep track of a main objective, and then all the players have a secret objective. And not only do players have secret objectives, but it's possible that one of the players will have a betrayal objective. So let's see, secret. All these are secret. Okay. So you can see the secret objective might be, this is a regular one right here, non-betrayal one, zombie killing robot. So you win the game if all the following are true. The main objective has been completed, and you have at least one gun, or one weapon, I should say, and 2 tool cards in your hand. All right, but then let's see another normal one here. We have like Hoarder. The main objective of the game has been completed, and you have more cards in your hand than any other player. So having something like this could cause a player to start appearing like they might be the traitor, because they're really not contributing the way a normal player would necessarily, except they're not the traitor. They just happen to be a hoarder. But then you have these: betrayal, serial killers. So morale needs to be at 0. At least 5 survivors were removed from the game. Helpless survivors do not count. So helpless survivors are just kind of dead weight. They can't be played, but other players can't play as helpless survivors, but they do still eat and that sort of thing. So helpless survivors don't count, because a lot of times you kind of want to maybe shuffle them on their way anyway. But so at least 5 survivors were removed from the game, meaning survivors that were played by other players, and you have at least 1 survivor in your following. So in that case, if the traitor wins, no one else wins. And yeah, so you can see there's all these different betrayal objectives, and then a bunch of regular ones as well. Trying to see, let's see, where are the main objectives? Well, so besides the main objectives, actually, let's show you this. You have numerous. You have 6 different locations that you can go to outside of the colony. You got police station, grocery store, school, library, hospital, and gas station. And all those places are going to give you different supplies and stuff. So let's see, these are all starter items, actually. Yeah, these are all starter items. So we don't need to worry about those. But for instance, at the police station, you can find food or night vision goggles. There's some more food, fuel, weapons, of course, and the library. You've got food, books, and by the way, don't discount how much these books are worth in the game. This one, if you equip it once per round of the survivors at the colony, you may add 1 food token to the food supply, basically for free. You're getting free food because you read the survivors cookbook. So all kinds of stuff. You have this die right here where if you leave the colony, or if you travel to a location outside the colony and you don't use fuel, you have to roll it. If you get a blank, you're good to go. If you get this, you took a wound. If you got that, you got frostbite. And if you get this, the tooth, instant death. And if there's another survivor near you, then you might end up biting them as well. So also you have to deal with these crises every round. So in this case, you need, if we had 3 players, you need to get 3 fuel to deal with this crisis. The dice are what help you decide what you're going to be able to do during the round. You have all kinds of characters. Alexis Gray, who's a librarian, the CDC official Katie James, the accountant David Garcia, Forrest Plum the Mall Santa, Brandon Kane the janitor, all these different people in here. Sparky the stunt dog that you're able to choose from, and lots of different special abilities in there. This game is so much fun, and some of the most tense gaming sessions I've ever had have been trying to figure out whether or not we had a traitor, and if so, who they were. If you do figure out who the traitor is, you are able to actually vote them out of the colony. So I have seen non-traitors get voted out of the colony, and if you do that, I believe twice, or maybe I can't remember exactly what the count is there, how it works, but you are able to actually lose the game because you vote the non-traitor out more than once or something like that. That doesn't happen very often. Usually you get about 1 vote. Yeah, I mean that's really there's so much fun to be had here, and again, some of the most memorable, most intense gaming experiences have been playing this game, Dead of Winter. And so for my number 8, which was Anderson's number 9, was Dead of Winter, as we just talked about. So what is your number 8? Let's see if we can get another crossover.
KDM is my
Death Monster. Very nice.
I enjoyed that when we played it. It's a nice campaign. Very, very difficult, but very rewarding kind of style. When we were making victories there, it definitely felt like you earned those victories, and we were definitely building towards something, even though we eventually did team wipe.
We made it, to year 13 or so, I think.
I think so. I felt like we made it pretty far, and made some good milestones, and built like a little village before it all crumbled apart in our very hands.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, Kingdom Death Monster number 8. All right. Number 7 is Orleans. This was one of the first, if not the first, Euro game that I really got excited about after learning it. This one, I mean, I don't know how it caught my attention. The box art, like now, I love the way this looks. But back then, when I was first learning this, and when it really first grabbed my attention, this sort of artwork just did not do it for me. I was much more into the really like high octane Amerithrash stuff that I still really enjoy. I mean, as you'll see as we go along as we continue the list. But this game really grabbed my attention. It's one. Let's see if I got to get down to the board, which I guess is in the bottom. Of course, it's in the bottom. So here you got the player boards. Let's see. So these are player boards, and you will, throughout the game, collect these workers. You'll put them in whichever bag, whatever player color you are, you'll have one of those bags. You put it in, you'll be drawing these workers out, place them down here, and then using them to complete these different actions to then get more workers or build guild halls, that sort of thing. Like I said, this is a player board, and so what every player has their own board there. And this right here is a spot where when you start paring down your bag, when you want to get rid of some workers, you can place them in the town hall, and then they'll go to this board, and you start putting them out. And the thing with this board is that as you put them out, you don't get anything necessarily for each individual placement, but whoever completes, so for instance, everybody puts stuff out here, whoever places the last person in this section, they will be the one that then gets the reward, which is pretty interesting. So here is the main board. And when the game starts, on most of these spaces, depending on the player count, you'll have these different goods placed out randomly. You got the wheat, you got the cheese, you got the wine, you got, I believe this is wool, and then there's like some linen or something somewhere in here. It looks like that right there. And so they're all placed out here randomly, and as you go around the board with your character or with your worker here, you'll pick up the different things that you pass. In the different cities, you can build these trading houses, which give you points to the end of the game. As you work your cubes up these tracks, some of them are worth points, some of them are going to give you different abilities. Some of them, you'll earn money, that sort of thing. And you'll gain, and the way you work your way up these tracks is by gaining workers of that type. There's this farm track up here where you can earn some money as well, depending on your positioning there. And throughout the game, you're working your way up this track, which is the points track. And every time you pass one of these spots, then it's basically a multiplier for your points. You also have these events that come out randomly right here, and different things will happen as well from those events. And so as you're going around, you're just kind of going around the French countryside here, going into the different cities, building these posts, trying to be the best merchant you can be. Oh, I forgot about these buildings over here too. So you have all these different buildings that you can purchase as well to provide additional actions for you on top of what you've already got. Some of them are basically similar to the actions you already have, but a little bit better, and some are entirely new actions from what you already have. Let's see. Oh, and then there's also, this is a cool thing that you could do. You have, this is called technology, and what it does is it lets you actually make it cheaper. So you put a technology out, and maybe you cover that guy up, and so now to do the wagon action, you'd only need a farmer and a knight, and not I think it's a merchant trader maybe. And yeah, so the technology is a fun thing to get involved with as well. And that's pretty much it. I mean, really, that's most of what there is to Orleans, and it's one of those games where it's fairly simple to wrap your head around the rules, and then as you're playing all these different decisions, how are you going to build your bag out? When do you start taking stuff out of your, like paring your bag down, getting rid of things from your bag? Because you want to have a good diversity of stuff in there, but you also don't want to have so much in there that you're not sure you're going to be getting the things that you want every turn. Yeah, it's a really, really great game. This one does not get old. Every time I pull it off the shelf, my wife and I absolutely love it. That's Orleans. So my number 7, as we just talked about, was Orleans, which I have not gotten you to play yet, I don't think.
No, we haven't played that.
And it's a straight up Euro game. There's no dice or anything like that. That's one that I think we would all really enjoy playing. So we definitely have to get that to the table eventually. What's your number 7?
My number 7 is actually a game you've just discussed, Dune Imperium.
Oh, nice. Look at that.
So yeah, it popped up a little bit
Very
later.
cool. So crossover number 2.
Crossover number 2.
All right. And we haven't played that together, so that's interesting that that we've got that as a crossover. Because there's just so many games out there to have, and we've only been playing games together for
year and a half.
And how long have you actually been doing games?
A little bit more seriously for like 3 years, but I played games, a good bit before that. But more seriously in the last 3 years, started going to a few conventions here and there, and kind of getting more and more into the hobby. Yeah.
Now with Dune, you're a fan of the actual series and everything. The books and movies, or just
books, movies, and sci-fi TV miniseries.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. I got obsessed with the movie, the most recent one when it came out. So we gotta wait till 2023, like November or something, for the next one. But still, really excited about it. What'd you like about the game itself?
It seemed like it did bring in the flavor from the movies in the game, sure. Especially the Bene Gesserit and all the other things where you're trying to concentrate that, and it seemed like they kind of distilled it down pretty well. Yeah,
I agree. Number 6 is Hadrian's Wall. This is the last new game to my list, so obviously premiering as the highest new game on my list. This one absolutely blew me away, took me completely by surprise when I played it the first time. This everybody calls it a roll and write. It has the feel of a roll and write, but it is not a roll and write. It is a flip and write combined with a worker placement. You can see it got banged around a little bit in there. It has seen some play for sure. As Anderson, I think, will mention here in a minute, he actually borrowed it from me and played the holy hell out of it as well, because he absolutely fell in love with it too. So you have, each player will get one of these sheets, with one of these and one of these. And as you're playing, you also have this board up above you. Let's see, like this, and this is going to tell you how many bad guys are showing up, and also you're going to keep track of how many rounds with this and what some of your final scoring is going to be. For instance, with your final scoring, let's see, so every round you're going to draw 2 cards. All right, so let's say I draw these 2. I can make Fighter my final scoring, or I can make Forager my final scoring. So let's say I decide I'm going to make Forager final scoring. So at the end of the game, resource production, if I have, this is resource production right here. If I have 3 spots filled out, you can see there's 1 that starts the game, so 2 more will get me 1 victory point in the game. If I have 6 spots here filled out, 2 victory points. If I have 9 spots filled out in the game, I'd have 3 extra victory points. So I put this right here to keep track of what that's going to be at the end of the game. That means Fighter then goes over here, and I'm going to get 1 additional, what are those called? Soldiers. 1 additional soldier for the round. You also have these cards right here. These are the picks, but at the beginning of a round, you flip it over, and so at the beginning of, let's say, round 1, all players will start with 2 soldiers, 1... what is that? Trader, maybe? Can't remember what the blue is. 1 servant and 2 civilians, as well as 2 resources. But then you get your own thing over here. Plus, as you fill different stuff out here, you'll start getting some extra stuff that other players don't get too. And as you go along, it's really a lot more simple once you understand the symbology than it might appear first, because these boards do appear very, very busy when you first look at them. However, as you go along, you fill in a square box like this that has this symbol and that symbol. So this symbol is the production symbol, so you'd fill in the circle there, and then you get a resource. And the resources can then be used to build SIPI or build walls. And, you are going up these different tracks. These right here are your victory point tracks down here. All this stuff over here is going to be triggering stuff over here as well. Every time, as you're going up these tracks, sometimes you're going to end up getting additional workers from the victory point tracks themselves. Then at the end of every round, You're going to draw this, and these arrows tell you where the picks are going to attack. And if you haven't built up enough defense, which is what this is up here, then you're going to end up getting disdain. And the more disdain you have, the more negative points you get at the end of the game. And so that's going to be constantly dragging your points down. But if you get some disdain, you can then go over here to the apparators. And I know I did not pronounce that properly, but I don't care. You can go to the bathhouse, and you can change the disdain to where they basically bribe them to forget about the fact that you failed to defend them at a certain point. The priest over here can essentially create divine intervention if you fill out the small temple, or get all the way down here to the medium temple, large temple here, to prevent some of the attacks. Or you can use the patricians to send out diplomats to talk with the picks and prevent some of the damage as well. All those different options just for figuring out how to deal with the picks. And then you have the marketplace over here is one option for building up victory points. You have the theater is a way of every round. If you build a theater in the first round, then every round, because the game lasts 6 rounds total, you could get some free, not free stuff, but pay one resource to get some different stuff here. That's pretty cool. And even if with the priests, if you don't deal with the temples, you got the garden here that just, you build a small garden, you get 4 different things right here. But then if you build a large garden, you get all this stuff too, which builds up these tracks, which then can trigger more stuff. And it's one of these games where every time you do something, if you do it right, then you're going to end up triggering this cascade effect where it looks like you have one thing left to do. You have one worker left, but you play that worker and it triggers this, that then cascades into that then triggers this over here, that then triggers this over here. And having that sort of effect where it keeps going back and forth, and one worker turns into 5 or 6 actions is such a cool feeling. And that's what this game really succeeds at. And it has been an absolute joy learning this game and getting into it. And I really just can't get enough of it. That's Hadrian's Wall. All right, so my number 6 was Hadrian's Wall, which I know you enjoy that one, so I'll be interested to see if that falls in here somewhere at all. But Hadrian's Wall is I just love that game.
I could also talk about Hadrian's Wall, and I will talk about Hadrian's Wall. So if you want to save it for that, we can.
Yeah, we'll save it until we get there. So that's a little bit of a spoiler for the list coming up. Or for a little bit up farther up the list.
A tease, maybe.
So yeah, a tease. So what's number 6?
Twilight Imperium.
Nice. Okay.
I really enjoyed that. Only got one play in on that.
So that was last year.
That was last year.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it so much I bought it right after, just in case I had
Nice.
another chance to play it. I wanted to try to get to the table because it was such a expansive space opera, just awesome depth and ability there. I think to really dig into it and play numerous times and never really get the same experience out of it.
Yeah. The cool thing that I would just love about it is that it feels like even when there's not obvious stuff to be doing when it's not your turn, but you still want to be paying attention the whole time when you're playing that game about what's going on, across the galaxy, on this side of the galaxy, everything, because all of it really is going to affect what you're able to do.
Yeah, and even the people you're working with, you can horse trade with people, trade things for not to get attacked, and then people will still attack you, and it's quite epic.
All right, that was Twilight Imperium. All right, so number 5 is Root. Now, I'll go in and tell you that the remainder of my top 10 has remained fairly stable. So just so you get an idea, Cloudspire was 5 last year. It's fallen to 10, primarily, I think, because I have not played it very much. We'll see what happens when I get it back to the table finally. Dune Imperium was brand new. Dead of Winter and Orleans both jumped into the top 10 from the top 20, 17 and 15 respectively. Hadrian's Wall was brand new. So now we are at Root, which was number 7 last year. And like I said, everything above it is also going to be from the top 10 last year as well. So you can see you're starting to get into these games where they have really established themselves in my brain sort of, and really in my gaming life. So I have an expansion for this, which shockingly enough, I have not played yet. So I don't know anything about this map right here. Let's just look at the base game map. And Root is one of those games that, considering how cutesy it looks, it is shockingly cutthroat. So in here, you've got, again, these guys here and these guys here are from the expansion that I have not played yet, so I don't know much about them at all. But in the base game, you've got the Marquis Cat right here that are... Oh, you know what? Let me grab the boards. They're in a separate box. Okay, so you have 4 factions. You've got the Woodland Alliance, you've got the Eyrie Dynasties, you've got the Marquis Cat, and you've got the Vagabond. And these guys play as differently from each other as you can possibly imagine. So the Marquis Cat, when they start out, these guys right here, they start out all over the board. They have taken over everything. They are not the original owners of the forest, but they take over everything before the game begins, except for one corner. And that one corner is where the Eyrie Dynasty is going to be. You can see on the back where it explains the setup for them. You're going to choose, 6 warriors and 1 roost in the corner, clearing diagonally opposite from the clearing with the keep. So the keep would be over here maybe, depending on where the Marquis Cat chose to put it. The Eyrie is going to be over here. But the Marquis Cat, the way they do everything, the way they make all their points is about building buildings. They've got sawmills, workshops, and recruiters. And they're going to be building those out. And all that stuff will start here on the board. And then as you uncover these points, you'll start working your way up this point track. Once you get to 30 points, you win the game. That's for everybody. 30 points, you win the game. But the Eyrie, on the other hand, are going to be trying to just build roofs. They're trying to reestablish dominance because the forest was originally theirs. And these guys are a programming faction, meaning you're going to be putting up different cards in the decree, and that's going to determine what the Eyrie is going to do. And they have to do that. They have to. If they don't follow their decree, if they set something up with these cards that they cannot do, then they end up going into turmoil. The leader gets deposed and a new leader has to take their place. And so then, meanwhile, the Woodland Alliance are these insurrectionists, right? And they have the ability to start popping up in different places, and they can actually wipe out an entire group in an area all at once and establish bases in these areas. They're trying to build sympathy with the local population and everything. That's one of the ways they're going to get a lot of their points. And then you've got the Vagabond that's just running around all over the place, just an individual pawn. He doesn't have an army like the rest of these guys. He's just by himself running around, causing havoc. He can develop relationships with the different factions, or he can be allied with them, or go all the way down to hostile against them. And you can see if he's hostile, he's actually going to score points every time he removes a hostile piece. But he also gets points for allying with them. And so there's all these different things. The faction boards actually work your way through. You have every player round has a birdsong, a daylight, and an evening. So for the Marquis Cat and the birdsong, they're going to place 1 wood at each of their sawmills that are out on the board. But then the Eyrie Dynasty during Birdsong actually has 3 steps. So you can see how it's completely different. The Woodland Alliance has 2 steps, and the Vagabond has 2 different steps during the Birdsong. Then you'll move on to Daylight, and this is where you can craft workshops if you're the Marquis Cat. And then the second step is take up to 3 of these actions. Right. And then finally the evening, and that's basically usually just some upkeep depending on what's going on. But you can see how incredibly different these factions are. Again, I've got some extra stuff in here that I don't know a whole lot about yet, but so for instance, these are the roosts for the Eyrie that get put out on the board, and the Vagabond deals a lot with all these different items and stuff. Help the Vagabond do different things. These are some little extra pieces I got from the last Kickstarter that I backed for them. And the cards actually have special abilities on them as well. Or these, what are these? These are not these cards. Here we go. Well, no, these cards. Yeah, here we go. So these cards, you have ambush abilities. If somebody attacks you, then you maybe catch them off guard. And all different stuff going on with these cards. Lots of different ways to use the cards. Again, each faction is going to use these cards differently. But then they do also have some special abilities that are universal. And like I said, the main way you're going to win is by getting 30 points. But if you have these favor cards, favor of the rabbits, you can remove any pieces in a rabbit clearing and then that's not the one I'm thinking about. That's actually a really powerful card. Where are the... Hold on. Dominance. That's what I was trying to find. All right, so with the dominance cards, you can, at a certain point in the game, you can declare, you know what, I'm not going for 30 points. And at that point, you cannot win with 30 points. Instead, what you're going to try to do is have at least 10 points and then remove your score marker. So you have to have 10 points to do this. You win the game if you rule 3 rabbit clearings at the start of your bird song. So you have a rabbit clearing here. You see the rabbit there, a rabbit here, and a rabbit down here. So if you can control all 3 of these, if you have control of that at the beginning of your turn, once you've declared you're going to win by dominance, then you win the game. But of course, once you declare you're going to win by dominance, everyone is watching out and making sure to try to keep you from controlling those 3 locations. A lot of very, very cool decision making going on in this game. That is Root. So my number 5 was Root, which I know I haven't gotten to the table with y'all yet, but that's one we absolutely have to play because, I mean, are you familiar with Root?
I've heard of Root. Isn't it asymmetrical?
Yeah, every faction plays their own, like they have their own set of rules. Basically, you have to teach the game, for the 3 of us, I have to teach it 3 different times when we're initially learning because each faction there's like a skeleton structure of how the rules work, and then each faction does their own thing within that structure. It's really interesting.
I do love a good asymmetrical game because there's always different things to exploit and different ways to play, and it always, to me, adds a good depth.
Nice. Well, so what's your number 5?
My number 5 is, and this is the first game I brought with me, is Yokohama.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
So,
This one you introduced me to. Like I hadn't played it before.
I actually won it at one of the first gaming conventions I ever went to. Didn't really have a chance to play it, and really got to the table with you. And I think me and you had a blast playing it. It's just a nice flavor-based game and worker placement. And I always love a good worker placement game.
Dozepad, did you win this one? Did you play this one?
I have not.
Okay. We played this together with just the 2 of us because it was the day he was absent.
That's right. Okay.
So we do need to get together for a 3-player game at some point.
Yeah, I think this one would do really well at 3.
Yeah.
My number 4 was also number 4 last year. This is Sleeping Gods from Ryan Lockett. This is, it's got a lot of rules going on. This is the player aid, which honestly is more of a reference, I guess. I mean, it is tiny print, so you can see there's a lot going on, but it is just 2 pages, so there's that. This game has so much narrative goodness in it. Oh my goodness, it's so much fun. So as you play through, you actually, this is one of the books with the narratives in it. So then you have this, which I believe is going to be, so here's the map from one of the expansions. Let's get down to the main map book, though. This is actually your ship that you're on while you're playing. This is the 1 to 2 player side. This is the 3 to 4 player side. So here is the main map book. And so when you start, you're here, and as you move along, you can see here, you go to page 8. If you go down here, you go to page 9 here, page 4, page 13, page 16, page 17, and all these circles all correspond. For instance, Zykura Trading Post, you go to 130 in here. And right here is Zykura Trading Post, and then all this stuff, everything under 130 is something that could possibly happen while you're at the Zykura Trading Post. And you're going around trying to locate these totems. And you can see I've actually found a bunch of these in my previous games. And as you find totems, you will unlock cards for all future games. I've only actually made it to the end of the game once, and I got ending number 12. And you can see there's all kinds of terrain here. Beautiful, beautiful artwork. And then in here, we have the different characters that all have different special abilities and traits. You got Raphael, Audrey, Kanan, Captain Sophie Odessa, who is one that is shared by all the players, and then the rest of them are split up by all the players. So No matter how many players you've got, you're going to use all these people. So a lot of people don't like playing this solo, don't like playing it with fewer than 3 players, let's say. But I actually have really enjoyed this solo. I have not played it with anybody else. I'm looking forward to getting other people involved. The combat in this game is something that was somewhat controversial. I came to enjoy it. I initially was pretty frustrated by it, but then did come to enjoy it once I figured out that it was more about the puzzle. I'm not going to show you all the different bad guys that are in here, but maybe you're fighting a Mythian Brute and a Mythian Guard. They're going to be next to each other. And as you fight, the way you beat them is by actually covering all the hearts that are on their cards, and there's different things that can happen, and as you cover up different stuff, it's going to cause either make things better or worse for you depending on what's going on. And once you beat them, then the combat's over and that sort of thing. But before you beat them, though, they can really do some damage to you. These guys can be really, really brutal, and these are some of the easiest guys in there, right? So the trick, though, is that the way you lay out your damage is really very puzzly in nature, and you tend to take a lot of damage yourself when you're first learning the game. There is a official easy mode, which if you're more into this just for the narrative, I strongly recommend the easy mode, maybe especially when you're first learning the game. Let's see. Trying to think what else to show you here. There's a lot of stuff I don't want to show you just from a spoiler point of view, but you do have these different items that you can add to your characters that add different abilities, armor, and stuff like that. You can, for instance, grilled fish. You can spend meat and vegetables to then remove fatigue, I believe is what that's called. That's low morale, I believe, and then heal 3 damage. Or you can get pot roast. These are all recipes that you can get. This right here is an upgrade for your ship, the Lucrum boiler. So you can see all this different stuff, lots of different recipes in here. Some delicious looking recipes, actually. And this really adds something to the story as well. I love those flapjacks. Those look so good. Let's see. There are these different abilities and stuff as well that you can get for your characters. But really, what you're going to find mainly being the thing that you're probably going to want to. The thing that's going to bring you back to this game time and again is really diving into the story and discovering more and more about the island or the islands. You see, you have all these cards. Some of these are unlocked, some of them are not yet. I don't want to dive into these too much just because of a lot of these are your missions and everything, and that's where the spoilers are going to be. Always like a game with a magnetic clasp, though. That's cool. But that is Sleeping Gods. All right, so my number 4 was Sleeping Gods, which I know we haven't played yet because that's on our list of campaign games to play. But that's right there on the shelf there with the green box. It's such a cool storytelling experience and fully cooperative, and every time you play it, the campaign kind of unlocks new stuff. It's really interesting. So we'll get that to the table eventually. That's my number 4. What was yours?
My number 4 is Gizmos. It's an engine building game. Comes with a whole lot of different marbles, and you kind of randomly select them, build different gizmos, and your ultimate goal is just to build the craziest machine and power up and draw more and more marbles until you build the craziest machine out there. And it's very neat, very graphic, and a lot of fun.
I've heard really cool things about this one. I have not played this yet, so that's definitely one that would be a lot of fun to get to the table, I think.
I think it's a very quick filler. It's like a filler game, but it's a quick play, but very satisfying.
What do you think, like 20 minutes or so? Or
it's about 30
minutes?
At most.
Cool. Number 3, which was number 2 last year, is Mage Knight, the board game. This is, there's some argument over whether this is one of the heaviest games out there, or if the rules make it so difficult to get into that it feels like one of the heaviest games out there. I do have a complete instructional series for Mage Knight, so be sure to check that out. But you can see that the rule book, which this very well-worn rule book, because I have flipped through it many times, but look at the just wall-to-wall text that you have to deal with when learning this game. I have all the expansions for it. The Lost Legion expansion is the only one I would say that if you like Mage Knight, definitely get Lost Legions. If you love Mage Knight, definitely get the other two, in my opinion. But as you're playing, you're going to be one of these Mage Knights right here. There's 4 to choose from in the base game, I believe. I think I have 6 now, thanks to the expansions, maybe 7. And you'll start at one of these spots, and then as you go through, you'll flip out these new areas, and it goes out something like that. And you'll be exploring all this and all these different little spots. You've got this glade, you've got these marauding orcs, you've got mage towers, all this stuff on some of the, once you get to the core tiles, which are the gold ones here, you're going to end up with dragons that are flying around and stuff like that. You have these buildings like the Mage Tower that you can go in and conquer and then learn stuff from, or you can go to the village and heal up. Like there's so much going on here. You have every character starts with, so this is Wolfhawk. Every character starts with their own deck of cards, and each one will have mainly the same stuff with a few changes. So you can see this is one specific to Wolfhawk for sure, Swift Reflexes, and then I believe the rest of this is primarily the same. And then what will happen is, as you're playing, you're going to end up having a chance to learn additional skills, which is what this deck is all about. All these extra actions you can learn. You will be able to gain higher, I should say, these guys right here. These are all different troops that you can hire. You have level 1, level 2. There's some pretty badass guys in there. And then these are elite troops that you can hire once you get to a certain point in the game. Again, a lot of crazy stuff here. By the way, there are expansion cards in here, so just keep that in mind, because I have all the expansions and everything's just mixed in. If you're playing with multiple players, then if it's daytime, you use these cards to decide turn order. If it's nighttime, you use these cards. They're going to give you some special abilities as well, or usually some one-time use things. These are artifacts right here that you can use them consistently for their top ability, or you can sacrifice them for their bottom ability, and all it's just, there's so much variation in what all this different stuff does, which is where the complexity for the game comes from. Here are spells. You have during the daytime, the top part of the spell is what can be used. Nighttime, if you supercharge it with dark mana, then you can use the bottom part of the spell, and those are some very powerful spells. The bottom part. What else do we have here? Oh, and these are just the wounds down here. And so you can see, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, I do have 7 different Mage Knights, and then the enemies are these pogs over here. Let's just pull a few of these out. So these are some of the rampaging enemies. You got some centaurs here. You've got looks like some pixies or something. These are all expansions for sure. There's some eagles. Looks like maybe some elves. What else we got? There's an orc right there. That one I believe is base game. And so that's what the green pogs are. Then you have these gray ones that show up in these citadels, not citadels, what are they called? Fortresses, something. And you're going to have things like that's a golem of some kind. You've got these soldiers, I believe is what those guys are called. The white Pogs have just crazy badass guys on them that you got to watch out for. And there's a couple other enemy types as well, brown and purple ones too. And then as you push through into the core tiles, you're eventually going to end up at some of these cities, and there's different levels depending on how difficult you're playing, and you'll end up fighting a bunch of bad guys in those cities at that point as well. While you're going through, you'll be earning fame every time you cross to a new row. You level up, which is going to either increase your hand size or get you new ability, stuff like that. You can what's this called? This is not fame. That's what this is. This is the your reputation. So as you do good or bad things, your reputation will increase or decrease, which will then help you in some ways, hurt you in other ways. And again, day or night, which is where this comes into play. You have these dice that you roll based on the number of players in the game. This is going to be your available mana. Every time you use it, you roll it again. If you end up rolling a black mana during the daytime, it gets locked and goes over there and can't be used again until night, at which point you start rolling again. And you can see during this is how difficult it is to travel through different areas. It costs 2 to travel through the grasslands, but 5 to travel through the desert during the daytime. But the desert at nighttime only costs 3. Meanwhile, the forest in the daytime costs 3, and the forest in the nighttime costs 5. You can also get these crystals here to use for mana, and again, there's just so much going on, and I have almost exclusively played this solo. I've played it once, maybe twice with 2 players. Very excited to get my current group involved and actually try it with 3, which is something I never thought I'd do. That's Mage Knight. All right, so number 3 for me was Mage Knight, which is... So I've always said I would never play that with more than 2 people, but I think the way that the 2 of y'all grasp games, it actually could work playing with 3 people. It's technically a 4-player game, but I'll definitely never play with 4. There's just so much downtime in between turns. But I think that would be one that I would be interested in trying with the 3 of us playing it at some point. But it's just this really massive, really thinky, really in-depth, card-based adventure game, I guess is the best way to describe it. But what's your number 3?
So my number 3 is the Red Dragon Inn.
Holy crap, look at that box.
It is quite the box. So it says number 5 on it. It actually is multiple expansions. I have a lot of different expansions.
I can't believe this is your number 3. I knew you liked this game, but I had no idea.
So, as you probably see, I haven't even unboxed some of them, but each character has a different deck they play with, and basically your goal at the end of the game is to be the last sober person standing with money.
Okay.
So you're trying to, character board's kind of like this. You start at 20 life and full sober, and as you get more drunk or you take more damage, you eventually end up either passing out.
So when drunk passes damage, then
you pass out and you're thrown out of the inn.
Okay, all right.
And you can also get thrown out of the inn if you run out of money. The great thing about this is there's just a whole lot of different characters, a whole lot of different playability, and they're each very flavored differently, and they each do different things. There's the pirate deck, there's the people at the bar, there's just the standard sorcerers, and there's illusionists, there's, as you can imagine, like I said, there's numerous expansions, so there's all kinds of different people, and whoever wants to pick a deck and go after something they like and play it and have a lot of fun.
That's really cool. I had no idea until you started talking about this game. Like, I heard of the Red Dragon Inn, but I did not know that it was this expansive, that there was so much available for it. All right, so my number 2 it's right over there. It's just honestly too massive to deal with putting on the table and trying to show you anywhere close to what's in there, and that is Gloomhaven. This game is huge and has so much content, and it is one that I am excited that I finally started playing through the campaign. I'm making a concerted effort to finish the campaign before Frosthaven shows up, which should be in 4 to 6 months, I believe. Probably closer to 6 months. Gloomhaven is a card-based, it looks like a dungeon crawler, it does not feel like a dungeon crawler. It is a card management, tactical combat game you have you start every scenario with all of your cards in your hand, and then you are playing the top action of one, because every card has 2 actions on it, top and bottom. You play top action of one card, bottom action of another card, and they go into your discard pile. Once you get to the point where you need to get cards back in your hand, you actually have to get rid of one of those cards for the rest of the game, for the rest of the scenario. And so slowly your options for what you're going to do get less and less, until finally you fall unconscious, basically, is what happens thematically. So this is one where, as you're playing, your characters have a life goal that they're trying to achieve. Once they reach that life goal, they must retire. You retire that character, they're done, and then you usually end up unlocking a new character class, so then you can play as that character class or any other unlocked character class. I still have not unlocked everything. Then there's like 90 something scenarios to play through. There's a main storyline, but then tons of side scenarios as well. Tons and tons of equipment for you to choose from, for you to purchase, for you to unlock. So much going on in Gloomhaven. It's not the most fantastic story in the world. That's not why I'm playing this one. This campaign game is all about the progression of my character abilities, the progression of unlocking new character classes. All of that stuff is super, super fun for me. Really enjoy it. Really enjoy figuring out, because all the character classes play very differently. They have some of them are going to be fantastic at scooping up tons of loot, whereas others are going to be much better at dealing those fatal blows to the enemies. Discovering the different ways that they work, discovering the best way to build out. I didn't even mention that as you play, as your character levels up, you unlock new cards for that character that you are able to then put into the deck. And so there's this constant evolution of your character in terms of their abilities as you play. You're always looking for that next thing you're going to unlock. Gloomhaven is just so much fun. Frosthaven looks like it has improved on everything and then added more to the game. It is even bigger than Gloomhaven and is going to be an absolute stunning blast of a time, I have no doubt. But for now, Gloomhaven is my number 2. We'll see what happens. By the time I make my list next year, Frosthaven should be here. And I'm interested to see how I'm going to handle the Frosthaven, Gloomhaven thing on the list. Anyway, Gloomhaven, my number 2. All right, so my number 2 was Gloomhaven, which is another on our list of campaign games. I'm actually probably going to end up knocking the Gloomhaven campaign out myself, and then we'll play Frosthaven together as a group. But anyway.
I've heard really a lot of good things about Gloomhaven, and we've been talking at Frosthaven. Looking forward to that when we can get it in and get around to it.
Yeah. So what's your number 2?
My number 2 is actually Hadrian's Wall. I don't know if you forgot it was on my list or not, but number 2 for me is Hadrian's Wall.
Nice.
I borrowed that from you after we played it together a few times. I enjoyed it a lot, and honestly, I enjoyed the solo almost as much as playing it together.
I love the solo.
It's a game of optimization, I would say, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Worker placement, optimization, and just kind of digging into it, playing it. I mean, I think there was one night I played it probably 8 times in a row.
Yeah, I've knocked out numerous games in one night with that game, just because it's one of those. It kind of feels to me like at the end of it. I remember when I used to play a lot of computer games, and you'd have like the turn-based computer games like Heroes of Might and Magic or Civilization or something like that, and you kind of got into this mode where you're like just one more turn, and then I'll go to bed. One more turn, and so this game it feels like one more game, and then I'll go to bed.
It very much feels like a Civilization game of one more turn, then I'll go to bed. But just build a little bit more. I can get it a little optimized a little bit better. And it just really captured that for me.
Awesome. So that was Hadrian's Wall. And finally, my number 1 game. It has been number 1 numerous years in a row now. I don't even know how many years in a row it's been number 1. Kingdom Death Monster. Also, not even going to try to show this to you on the video. I've got so much coverage of Kingdom Death on the channel. There's plenty for you to see if you want to go over and check out. I mean, there's a video here in the top corner of the screen if you want to check that one out, and then lots of other Kingdom Death stuff to check out on the channel. This is a game where you start off the game with basically 4 survivors, loincloths, sharp rocks. That's it. And you start off fighting this man-eating, horrific white lion with these weird hands, and you're fighting that that monster, and usually you're going to win because it's kind of a nerfed version of that monster, the one you start off fighting. But then immediately the next fight is going to be the regular version of that monster, and you are building the settlement, and you have what are called innovations, which are they are your technology for the game. But it's not like your normal tech trees. It's stuff like, face painting and ammonia and different spirituality stuff. All these different things that are you might see a rudimentary civilization start using, learning how to use. And by the way, everything's completely dark. There is no sunlight in this world. The only light, generally speaking, is this lantern that you carry around that is somehow personally related to you and your soul or your spirituality in the game. And there are, just in the base game, there are a number of terrifying monsters that have greatly varied abilities. The Phoenix that comes in the base game has the ability to de-age your characters out of existence or age them to the point where they die on the battlefield. You have this antelope that, besides having its normal mouth, has this giant maw underneath it that has these enormous teeth, and it'll swallow you whole and do all kinds of horrible stuff to you. And then you've got guys that look like they're normal sized humans, like the Kingsmen or the Hand, that show up and wreak havoc on your settlement if you're not careful. On top, and then I'm not even talking. There's so much in this game. My mind's always racing when I'm thinking about Kingdom Death because there's so many. I've had more memorable, fantastic moments in Kingdom Death. Not necessarily as intense moments as in terms of player-to-player interaction as with Dead of Winter, but in terms of intense moments against the game itself, Kingdom Death has delivered that in spades. Stand up, moments where one dice roll is going to determine everything. Some of the monsters have these things called death blows, which they have a hit location deck, and every time you hit the monster, you pull from the hit location deck. And and that's going to tell you, whether you're hitting them in their head or their arm or whatever. And some of them have a death blow card in that deck. And if you happen to draw that card and kill the monster when that's the card that you're hitting them with, the location that you're hitting them, then a really cool effect happens. And I've seen that happen, a number of times out of my 100 plays. And you have to hunt a lot of these monsters too. At the quarry, you actually have to hunt the lion, the antelope, and the phoenix. You hunt them, and so when you go out on the hunt, you have these events that occur along the way. Some of them are random. Some of them are, they're all random, but some of them are random out of a table of 100 events that can happen on any hunt, and some of them are random to that specific monster. And inevitably, somehow, a narrative emerges out of this game. Every time I've played a campaign, it has this knack of creating a story out of all these seemingly random events. Now, there are certain things that are always going to happen in a campaign, and so that helps kind of give you some guideposts for how that narrative is going to go. But the random events so often feed right into what's going on anyway. It's really, really interesting and really intriguing. My game group and I got to year 13 or so on our first try. I've played, like I said, about 100 times, 100 games of it, but it was their first try. We got through about 13 showdowns or so before we got TPK'd. Definitely going to come back to it. We're currently playing Madara, but Kingdom Death is one of those games that sticks with you, and you can't play it once and expect to like it in any way other than, oh, well, that was kind of a cool experience. To get to the point where you really see the beauty of the design and to see the intricacies of how it works, and to really, really get to where you are in it, you got to play as deep into a campaign as you can. You got to get 5, 6, 7, maybe 10 plays in. And I get it. That's a hard ask for a lot of people, especially for a game that runs $400 retail. If you have access to this game, if you know someone that has it, get in on a campaign. If you can get 10 games into that campaign. I mean, really, my group was hooked after 5. Maybe before, but I would say after 5, they were into this and they wanted to play it and wanted to come back to it every time we did. And they want to get back to it and play again, whenever we get done with the current campaign of Madara. Or, it just sinks its claws into you and sticks with you. That's Kingdom Death Monster. Great. And then my number 1 was Kingdom Death Monster. It's been at the top of my list for 3 or 4, maybe 5 years at this point. But yeah, Kingdom Death is definitely my all-time favorite game. It's not my favorite solo game because there's so much to keep up with, but for just playing with other people, Kingdom Death all the way.
Well, like I said, I had a lot of fun playing that. And it was a good build. My number 1, though, is Terraforming Mars.
Nice.
As we've played that before.
Yeah.
I
love this one.
And one thing we haven't done yet is pull out the expansions, Venus and the Colonies, which add a little bit even more depth to it. I know
we use the Prelude whenever we play.
We always use the Prelude, but we haven't tried Venus, which
Okay.
has its own board, and then the Colonies, which have their own boards, which add extra resources in, make it even more strategic, add a little bit more depth to it. It's a nice, complicated game. I love the flavor for it. I love the idea of colonizing Mars. It just, to me, it's a lot of fun. I never have had a bad time terraforming Mars.
Yeah, this one is one that every time I play it, it feels like initially getting back into it, because I've never learned it myself. I've always been taught it. So initially getting back into it, I can't remember how any of it's going to work, and then it all just clicks and just flows every time once that initial explanation is given back to me. But awesome. So Terraforming Mars, number 1. So there you go. That is my number 10 through 1 of my top 50. I hope you enjoyed this list. Took me a little longer to get it out than I had hoped for, but it is done now. We actually have coming up real soon my top 20 most played games of all time based on the number of individual plays. That'll be coming out at the end of July, maybe the beginning of August. Also on the table right now under the camera, I am learning how to play Tales from the Loop. I'm going to have a gameplay and a instructional video of that for you. Very excited for that. This seems like a really cool, interesting game with a lot of, you got to do homework. You got to get your homework done in that game. So be sure to come back, check that out. I've got a ton of Nemesis Lockdown coverage on the channel over the past month or so, and I've got at least one more gameplay of that coming, and at least one more how to play of that coming. Thank you to Anderson for joining me on the channel and putting together that top 10. Hopefully we can get Dozpat to do a top 10 next year as well. Also in August, my buddy Ryan, who has introduced me to so many games, Dune, Imperium, quite a few of this list is thanks to Ryan. Terraforming Mars, Architects of the West Kingdom, just to name a few. He's going to be coming up to my house for a get-together in August, and then we're going to film his top 10 as well. So be sure to come back for that. And until next time, if you're bored online, board offline.